Despite the fact that Donald Trump has been seemingly rooting on an economic crash under President Joe Biden to hurt him politically, we just keep getting good economic news. Now, the caveat I always find important to add in these sorts of segments is reporting on these, discussing these. It's not to downplay the pain, the very real economic pain in the lives of people, but instead to underline what is also really important and notable phenomenon, which is that the story of President Joe Biden's presidency has been one of inheriting all of these messed up conditions, all of these pandemic related crises, this public health crisis, the social crisis, and this economic disaster that his predecessor was mismanaging, and then taking us from there and overseeing quite the recovery. And there's lots of credit to go around. It's not all about President Joe Biden, but given the fact that networks like Fox News and Donald Trump will blame their stubbed toe on Biden, maybe a little bit of credit should be given. Here is this from CNN. All three major indexes, the S&P 500, NASDAQ, and Dow, surged to record highs Wednesday. And then I'll show you Fox News having to report on this. But first, remember, as we go through this, that this is what Trump was saying during the 2020 debates about a potential Biden victory.
He said the stock market will boom if I'm elected. If he's elected, the stock market will crash.
Okay, let's move on to the next question.
So he was predicting a stock market crash. Instead, we're seeing the stock market once again break records. Here's Fox breaking this devastating news to Trump that, sorry, buddy, I don't think we're going to see that crash that you so desperately want under Biden.
All right, let's read that Dow for you. It is at 40,014. Got it. It's up 106 points at this moment. Now, obviously, when the Dow's up like this, you're going to have some winners, some significant winners.
And I will show you as well a funny video that was posted by the Biden-Harris HQ account. And it's captioned, "Sorry this is happening to you, Fox News." And we've seen these sorts of videos before where Fox is mocked for having to begrudgingly report on good stories for President Biden.
Look at that market. I've been doing this a long time. I never expected the Dow to hit 40,000.
The Dow 30 broke 40,000 for the first time in history.
With numbers like that, $10 trillion increased wealth in 1 year. Middle America has to be doing very well. Look at that market.
Yeah, and I know what you're thinking. All right, well, Trump was wrong, but okay, people are wrong about things sometimes. It's not like he would predict that again about this election. Well, you are mistaken if you're thinking that, because why adjust your messaging for the facts when you can just pretend the facts are different?
The Biden administration is running on the fumes.
By the way, this is his current campaign saying the same thing.
Fumes of the great success of the Trump administration. Without us, this thing would have crashed to levels never seen before. And if we're not elected, we'll have a depression the likes of which I don't believe anybody has ever seen. Maybe 1929. That's what's going to happen. We're running on fumes. With your vote by Christmas, and we're going to have it by Christmas 2024. That's
what? A little glitch there. But before showing you this next video of Trump being mocked by the Biden campaign, just to get this straight, Trump's saying that, so he was president and the economy crashed under him. Granted, we'll circle back to this, but obviously because of pandemic-related things, his mismanaging of it didn't help. But the pandemic, okay. But then Biden comes into office and there's this horrible crisis going on. That's what he has to inherit. And then essentially, in short, things just get a lot better. That's sort of the short and sweet version of Biden's presidency. And somehow he's going to take that, if he won re-election, thing that was built from a terrible situation, and it's all going to crash again. It just doesn't quite seem right. It would seem a little bit more likely to say maybe the guy who experienced the economic crash under him just a few years ago, maybe if he won, we would see a bad economic situation. But again, we'll get back to the context that MAGA folks want us to inject like bleach into these conversations.
If Biden wins, you're going to have a stock market collapse, the likes of which you've never had.
The Dow 30 broke 40,000 for the first time in history.
Look at that market.
On a year-to-date basis, we know that the markets have been relatively strong.
We see earnings increasing
for the second quarter. We see record earnings estimates for the third and fourth quarter, and that's what really impresses me.
I've been doing this a long time. I never expected the Dow to hit 40,000.
Biden wins.
Yeah, so that was a little split screen made by the Biden campaign to illustrate the point that I've made here. And then just one other thing before responding more, the Biden-Harris campaign released this statement. Toughest news yet for the one guy in America rooting for the economy to crash because he thinks it'll help him politically. Donald Trump promised the stock market would crash if Joe Biden was elected. Instead, Joe Biden has broken economic records across the board, from record small business growth to historically low unemployment, and now a new high for the Dow, strengthening Americans' retirement plans. Now the choice is clear. Either President Biden continues to deliver an economy that works for working families, or we give the keys back to Donald Trump, who taken the economy and left a mess for President Biden to clean up and get America back on track. If Trump returns to power, he will tilt our economy to benefit the super wealthy, cut Social Security and Medicare, and leave working families behind, just like he did before he lost to Joe Biden. And indeed, despite the claims within MAGA, he did lose to Joe Biden. Now, the part there that says who tanked the economy, referring to Donald Trump, really irritates MAGA folks and others too, because it feels like you're excluding the context of the pandemic. And I think while some people I've heard on the left do think we should just sort of set that aside and just state the facts that Trump is one of only two presidents in American history to have lost jobs, have left office with fewer jobs than whenever he took over. And it's true. And so some people want to hold Trump to the same standard that we know they would hold Biden to, because you know it's true that Fox News would blame the pandemic for even starting on Biden if he were president when it got started, given that they blamed everything the pandemic caused once Biden took over on Joe Biden. Price increases, anything else, it was all because of Biden. And they were able to understand the context of COVID when Trump was having a tough time, but then any issues under Biden that were caused by the pandemic, they couldn't understand the context of COVID for. So very dishonest. But I'm not one of those people who says because Fox News would never properly contextualize the situation if Biden were president when the pandemic started, that's what we should do. I don't think we should do that. Let's include the context, because I think that makes Biden's presidency more impressive. And what I mean is, as we've talked about before, one of the things they do where they try to pretend like Trump's presidency ended in 2019, and so anything about the pandemic, it was sort of Biden's fault. I've talked to Trump supporters who genuinely think that Biden shut down the country and Trump was trying to reopen it, even though shutdown started under Trump. The timeline gets all warped. The reason that serves Trump so much is because then you can both forget that he mismanaged this pandemic. So he didn't start it. That's not his fault. But when it was time to lead, yes, as a president, you're supposed to lead in crises. He failed. He failed miserably. And so that they really want to omit. But just as notably and impactfully, they want to omit the context of the pandemic when understanding Biden's presidency, because then they can blame conditions that the pandemic caused on Biden. And they can also not analyze the stunning recovery as accurately. Because when you do remember the situation we were in when Biden took over, then the fact that we're here now is pretty remarkable, as shown by us recovering in a much stronger way than our counterparts across the world. And no, that's not all because of Biden. But again, everything in the MAGA world seems to get blamed on Biden. So if they were consistent, they would give him a whole lot of credit when things get a lot better. But obviously, I can't expect that of them, so I won't. I'll leave it there. Let me know what you thought of all that in the comments.